So this is my second attempt at filming this video. I had the brilliant idea to try filming this outside. I thought it was a beautiful day. Yeah, that was a horrible idea. It was so loud, so noisy. My dog was out there. She was making all the noise in the world. So yeah, when I watched back the footage, I was like, yeah. I mean, there was a part of me that was like, well, maybe I could still, I was using a microphone, maybe, and I was like, I had to just admit to myself, no, you cannot show that to anyone. So I'm inside again, and this time, this is take 2 of my March-April reading wrap-up. The reason why I'm doing the last 2 months is because I haven't done a ton of reading these 2 months. I had to do a lot of studying for my insurance license. That won't be probably done until another month. So I figured, okay, I'll just combine the last 2 months so I'll have like a decent haul to speak of. So the first book I want to talk about is Legendborn. This is the first book in the series. The other 2 books, book 2 is Bloodmarked, book 3, which came out on March the 4th, was Oathbound. I bought Legendborn and Bloodmarked like a month, like in February, I believe, in preparation for Oathbound, and I bought Oathbound on release day. So I read this during March, to start the series. This was so good. 5 stars. And if you're not someone who's into YA, I get that not every YA book is for me, but this is an exception. Even if you don't like YA, give this book a try anyway. You'll probably still love it. So this deals with Bree. She's 16 years old, and she is a part of a sort of like advanced, it's basically like an advanced sort of like college program that she's taking part in. So I think she gets like some type of credits, which will help her get into college and prepare her for college. So she has to be on campus. So she's kind of getting a college experience even while as a teenager. Now, what I'm about to say isn't a spoiler. You find this out in the first page. A few months prior to her going to this school, so a few months prior to the beginning of this book, her mother dies. They had like a huge fight about her going to the college prior to her mother passing. And she doesn't really know why her mother didn't want her to go, since she is an alum of that school. And even, I think she may have even taught at that school for a period of time. So like, she's like, why are you not wanting me to go there? Why do you want me to stay in this small town and not see more? You're trying to like limit me, type of thing. So like a big fight happens, but then her mother gets into a car accident and passes away, and she feels like a lot of obviously conflicted feelings, a lot of guilt and all of that, and she doesn't really know how to feel and how to like process all of that. And then like when she goes to this college, she sees some things that she cannot explain. She's able to see things other people cannot see. And she realizes very quickly that there might be more to her mother's death than meets the eye. So she joins a secret organization in order, because she thinks that they may have had something to do with her mother's death. So she wants to get to the bottom of that. Now, if you're someone who likes trials, there are trials in this book. If you like King Arthur retellings or any type of retellings, you're like this as well, because it is a King Arthur retelling. This is a book that had an amazing twist at the end. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but they set things up perfectly for Bloodmarked. I'm so excited to begin book 2. This, as I said, was a 5-star read. If you read this, you're probably like, well, there are some people apparently who didn't really like this book, so I guess it's not for everyone, but it was definitely for me. And as I said, if you like trials, read this. If you like King Arthur retellings, or retellings of just famous stories in general, if you like magic, secret societies, different types of magic systems, give this book a try. You won't regret it. So the next book that I read in March was Rouge. Now, I'm not going to say too much about this. I have a full review already of this book up. I'll link it in the description so you can check that out if you want to. But Rouge deals with a lot of different topics. So like there's the topic of the beauty industry and how it preys on vulnerable people, specifically women and children. It deals with grief, it deals with race, because the main character in this book is biracial. She's half French, half Egyptian, and she's not proud to be an Arab woman. Her mother, there's kind of some hints that her mother, who's French, is not proud to be French. She doesn't like to speak French at home. She only likes to speak English. So there might be, we don't get delved too much into that, but I suspect that like she wasn't proud to be French or French Canadian for whatever reason. There also is a lot of stuff about like generational traumas and trying to break generational curses. And this is a book that deals with magical realism as well. So throughout the book, you're not entirely sure what is real and what is like kind of just like kind of what's happening in her head. She ends up kind of like getting involved in this like beauty cult that her mother was a part of before she died. And you know, again, just like with Legendborn, there's kind of like these hints that there might be more to the main character Belle's mother's death that meets the eye. So she kind of wants to explore that a little bit as well. So both of these, so really, I mean, I didn't plan this, but both of these deal with, you know, daughters grieving their mothers, maybe having complicated relationships with their mothers. Now that I'm saying it, I didn't even realize how many themes overlap in these two books, because I think the reason why I didn't notice at first was the fact that these are very different books. But yeah, some of the themes are the same: grief, mother-daughter relationships, generational traumas. There's magic in both, though this is more magical realism, while this is more like King Arthur type of like Brown Knights type of magic. So yeah. This book, would I recommend it to people? Again, this is kind of like the first Mona Awad book I've ever read, and the first book with like magical realism that I've ever read. It was a very strange book. It's probably one of the strangest books I've ever read. So I don't know. I definitely wouldn't recommend this for everyone. I think you have to, like, it's an acquired taste. If you like magical realism, if you like any of the topics that I just brought up, and if you don't mind very strange books, then I guess like this would be a book for you. If you're not someone who likes strange, out of the world type stuff, this probably won't be for you. Like one thing that was very strange, Tom Cruise is brought up in this book quite often. Now it does make sense. I can't really say too much about it because it would be a spoiler. All I say is that it does make sense. It's kind of not controversial in like a problematic way, in terms of like controversial in terms of like some people liked it and thought it was interesting, and other people thought like, I didn't really like this. He was brought up way too often. I would have preferred if he didn't show up as much. But like, I guess you would have to read it to know, like, because like, again, I can't actually tell you why he's brought up. He's kind of in it, but kind of not in it at the same time. And again, that doesn't sound like that makes any sense, but it will if you read this. So I guess I'll just say, just read this book and decide for yourself if it's for you or not. That's all I can say, really. The third book that I read from March, I don't have it with me. It was a library book. It was for my nonfiction book club, and it was Radium Girls. For a second, I couldn't remember. Yes, it was Radium Girls, and as I mentioned, it's nonfiction. It's about these young women and teenage girls who work in these radium factories. They basically paint dials or like watches or whatever with radium paints, and many of them got sick from how they used it. So what they would do is, in order to make the paintbrushes as thin as possible so they could like properly paint the little like numbers and things, they would take the brush, the little brush, dip it in their mouth, dip it in the paint, and then again over and over again. So they're constantly getting the radium paint in their mouth. Obviously, as we would know now, radium is dangerous and shouldn't be consumed. So they got very sick. Their companies tried to hide the fact that the radium was making these girls sick and refused to give them money. And this is kind of like their battle of trying to get recognition from the company and the law that radium is dangerous and that the company is legally I would give this book a 4.5 out of 5. It was a very well done book, and if any of those topics that I just mentioned are of interest to you, I would recommend you read this book. It's an important part of history, and I feel like it's still very relevant today in terms of like the health industry in America and many countries, dealing with, not being treated well in workplaces, workplace safety, all of that still has so much relevance today. So I am very glad that I read this book. We had a really great discussion during my book club. So yeah, so I would recommend giving it a try. There were a few people in my book club that said they didn't really like it, but I thought it was really well done. So I would recommend it to people. So now I'm going to talk about what I read in April. So first, Brandon Sanderson, Mistborn. Again, I'm not going to say too much because I did do a full review. I'll link it down below. This is the beginning of my Brandon Sanderson journey. It was incredible. 5-star read. Maybe even 6-star read. Honestly, it was so good. And I'm so excited to read I think it's called The Well of Ascension, and then The Age of Heroes. I have the other 2 books. I found them in a free library, which I'm so happy about. And then obviously there's Era 2 and a bunch of other books, as well as I think it's called The Way of Kings. I want to get into all of his books because like this was so good. It's about a group of thieves, part of a thieving crew who get together. They are part of this group, this ethnicity called the Ska, and the Ska are basically treated like a slave class. And honestly, in order to make any type of life outside of the plantation or outside of like servanthood, you have to be part of a thieving crew, which is still extremely dangerous, but it's like the only way to get even the little bit of money or freedom. So this thieving crew, which is one of the best in the land, they decide to take on a client who is the sort of like part of a Ska rebellion, and they are going to take down the Lord Ruler, who is a 1,000-year-old ruler who rules over this kingdom. He's basically like this evil tyrannical ruler who people view as like a godlike figure. So this is like a huge job, most likely going to end in failure. David Goliath type story. The main character in this, there are 2. One is Vin, who's a 16-year-old girl, and the other is Kessler. This isn't a YA. This is an adult book. Kessler was one of my favorite characters in the book. He's probably in my top 5 for favorite characters, period. He was incredible in this. I just love this story so much. All the characters were pretty great. Some more so than others, but like they all kind of served their purpose. And again, just like some of the other books I mentioned, this had a great twist at the end and set things up really well for book 2. I'm very interested. I have a lot of questions that it kind of brings up at the end, not in a bad way, like not in a like, why didn't he do this type of thing, but more in like things that were set up for book 2. So I'm very interested to see how the rest of the series goes, as well as everything else he writes. I'm very intrigued now. And yes, I would recommend this to anyone and everyone. If you have not read a book by Brandon Sanderson, start with Mistborn and then make your way through the rest of his books, because this was an incredible read. So last book that I want to talk to you about, let me just make sure I don't show you which library I got this from. It is my April book club pick, and it's called Ducks, 2 Years in the Oreo Sands. It is a nonfiction graphic novel. Let me show you some of the artwork. So yeah, it's a nonfiction graphic novel. It's also kind of like a memoir. So it's by Kate Beaton, and it's about her 2 years in the Oreo Sands after she graduated from university in, I think she's from Nova Scotia or New Brunswick. It's one of the 2. She's from the Atlantic. She basically goes on the other side of the country to Alberta to work in the Oreo Sands. And she, obviously, as it says, 2 years in the Oreo Sands. So she does this, obviously, to pay off her student loans. For anyone who doesn't know much about the Oreo Sands, or about Canada in general, that is a place where Alberta is where most of our oil comes from. And if you get a job at the Oreo Sands, you can make a lot of money, but it is a very grueling and hard job. In this book, she deals with she and the other people deal with loneliness, isolation, One thing I should bring up, SA is brought up in this. So if that's not something that you want to like hear about, you should probably skip this book because that is brought up in this. There's a lot of heavy topics that are brought up. She shows how difficult it is to work in the oil sands, period, but especially as a woman because it's more of a male-dominated industry, at least at the time that she was working there, because that was like a decade ago. It might be a little bit different now, I'm not totally sure. But yeah, she gave a very graphic and haunting, depiction of what it was like to work there. And yeah, it was a pretty good book. I would give it a four stars. Would I recommend this to people? As I said, if you're not someone who could deal with or wants to really deal with deep topics like SA or even like isolation or sexism or any of that, or even racism, this book probably won't be for you. But if you're fine with dealing with those type of things, you can read about that type of stuff, I would definitely give it a read. One of the things I like too about expanding my genres and not just reading fantasy and sci-fi this year, when I looked up the Goodreads reviews for this, it had some recommendations for other nonfiction graphic novels, as well as other like contemporary graphic novels that deals with like similar topics. And I basically added them all to my TBR. I'm so excited to read them because like this was a pretty interesting read. It's the first time, as I said, actually I don't know if I said it this time or if it was the last video that I said this in, but this is the first graphic novel nonfiction book that I've ever read. I've read plenty of graphic novels and I have obviously read nonfiction, but I've never read a graphic novel that was a nonfiction. So this was the first time and it was very well done and I want to read more. So that is, my reading wrap up for March and April. I would say even though, they weren't, I'm trying to like collect all the books and like show them again. Even though there weren't a lot of reads, they were good reads for the most part. Nothing under 3 stars. There were a few obviously 5-star reads in here. And I would recommend most of these books to people, obviously with a few caveats for some of them. But yeah, it was these last few months have been kind of stressful with like all the studying that I've had to do, but like reading these books have kept me sane. And even going into the provincials, I will be reading beach reads and a few other books. I probably won't be able to read very much this May because again, the provincials are going to be even more kind of like grueling to study for than the certification tests. But I will read at least 2 books this month, hopefully 3, and hopefully they will be 5 stars. I started beach reads. I'm only like 2-3 chapters in, but so far it's pretty good. I did read The Chosen Ones in like the first few, like I actually started in the last few days of April and finished at the beginning of May, so I'm counting it for my May reads, and it was a 5-star read. I am going to do a sort of review, but also kind of like defending the book a little bit because it had like a lot of negative reviews on Goodreads and I thought it was a 5-star. So I'm going to talk about why I think it's a 5-star and why I don't think it deserved any of the hate that it got. That'll probably be next week. Maybe, I don't know if it's going to be next week or if it's going to be the week after that because again, this is going to be a really tough time for me. But at some point within the next 2 weeks, that will be up. So that is my March and April wrap up. Let me know in the comments, for the last 2 months, what did you read? What were your 5-star reads or reads that you would recommend to people? And have you been having a good May reading month so far? And today is Friday and Sunday is Mother's Day. So I just want to say, I hope everyone has a great weekend. And for all the mothers out there, I hope you have an amazing and wonderful Mother's Day. Till next time.